Hello! Fingers crossed all is well. I was ready early today. Sadly, YouTube not quite so ready. But with a bit of luck, you are hearing me. I'll get the thumbs up in a couple of seconds and we can get going. I'm going to address one question or one comment that I saw in the chat, which was from Renee. Doesn't know what to expect. Well, to have your mind blown, obviously. Right, I'm being given the thumbs up. You can hear me. Fantastic. I do believe everything is hunky-dory in the way of slides actually moving this week. So fingers crossed, and we can head off and have a look. So if you don't know me, and I have had mails from people who are saying this is the first time they've come to a session, I'm Elaine. Hello, long-time computer trainer, podcast host and YouTuber. I work with macOS, iOS and Windows on occasions, at least once a week. Church newsletter, you know. All types of applications, all the Affinity applications, Scrivener, Office, even Adobe Creative Cloud at times. So hello and welcome. Do say hello if it is your first time in the chat. And if it is not your first time in the chat, obviously you know to say hello. Right, we're broadcasting in 1080p. Fingers crossed that continues. YouTube, however, may have other ideas for you. So make sure that you look at the cog in the lower right-hand corner and that you are set to the red flash, which is HD, so things aren't fuzzy. While you're down there, there's a like button. I like likes and YouTube likes likes, so have a think about hitting that like button. There is also the option to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and that way you won't miss out on anything that we do. Right. Application-wise, Affinity Publisher is cross-platform. It is on Windows and it is on Mac. Apparently, this year, it'll be on iPad. But there's some debate and much demand for that. So fingers crossed and we might see that soon. Everything that I do tonight in terms of what happens inside Affinity Publisher is applicable to both platforms. So what are we going to cover? Well, it says create planner pages, and that's what I'll be doing. But if you don't have a desire to create planner pages, then extrapolate from the features that I demonstrate, and there will be a lot of features. And it's not just the individual features themselves, it's how they link together to provide productivity boosting enhancements of your work in Affinity Publisher. But in terms of what we will actually create, we'll have a look at the apps to create planner pages and the options for using them. Then we will create some notes pages. We have mini calendar pages, monthly pages, which is a month to a view, daily pages, habit trackers, divider pages, and pages for memories. Who doesn't want pages for memories? Right, I know you will probably have questions. Put your questions in the chat with a Q at the beginning. And if you can, we will gather them all together to look at a relevant point. So Q at the beginning and also provide some context. So I always say, if you're going to say, what was the option on the left of that dialog box? Tell me which dialog box. Context. Context is good. Right, the question and answer will be at the end, although having said that, I will stop as we go through, and my trusty assistant here, Mike, is monitoring the chat for questions, and I will answer them if it is relevant at that point. Right, so creating planner pages in Affinity Publisher. Well, first of all, why are you making your own planner pages? And particularly in Affinity Publisher. And there could be one of a few reasons. So it could be that you want the perfect personal planner for you. So I'm sure we've all bought diaries every now and then. And it's like, oh, there isn't enough room for this. Or, you know, why is that listed? I'm not interested. And I wish I could do this. And maybe you've even used some whiteout and you've changed the headings for things. I have happy memories of an academic year diary, and it was the first time I'd used it for the entire year. It was perfect. It was a Garfield diary. What can I say? I was 16. But the right planner makes the difference between using it and not. So you may just want to create the perfect planner for you. It could be that you want to sell printed planners on marketplaces like Etsy. It could be that you would like to sell digital planners. And there is good news for all of those things. Affinity Publisher works for all three options. You want to create pages and print them out for yourself, can do that. If you want to sell physical planners, you can send them off for print. And if you want to sell digital planners, it works for that as well. There are a few steps involved in this. So the first step is creating the pages. Obviously, we're going to be looking at Affinity Publisher, but I'm not going to hide from you that you have many, many options. So obviously there's InDesign, but you can also create these in PowerPoint or in Keynote. And when I say planner pages, I include in that the digital planner pages where they are linked together, all the pages you can navigate digitally. In fact, we can add an extra one to that, Google Slides, and that one, of course, is completely free. There's also options like Canva, but Canva's very limited when it comes to making links between things. Most people tend to use InDesign or Affinity Publisher, and they are indeed the best options. If you need data merge, and trust me, once you start creating planner pages, you'll really appreciate the benefits that data merge will bring you. Obviously, Adobe InDesign suffers from a subscription pricing model, but Affinity Publisher is currently a one-off cost of only $47.99. So they both have this data merge option that you may need if you're getting serious about this. It's just Affinity Publisher is a less expensive option. So it's Affinity Publisher that we will be looking at. The second aspect of planner pages is using them, the consumption of planner pages. Now, if you're going to print them, it's simple. Print them, bind them, use them. That's it. But what about a digital planner? You've probably used Affinity Publisher before for other things. What's different about a digital planner? Well, it's a PDF. It's simply a PDF. If we're going to get more specific, it's a PDF with hyperlinks. And it's those hyperlinks on a device that enable you to navigate around the planner. Now, many apps can make use of the PDF format to give you the experience of an analogue planner in a digital world. The most common I see used is GoodNotes. GoodNotes is free for 3 notebooks. So if you don't need more than 3 notebooks, then it's a completely free solution. For the full experience with many, many notebooks, it's $6.99. If you've ever had it before, they've not charged an upgrade fee, so you can get the latest version, and what you paid for before will cover you for the new one. The second one I see used a lot is Notability. I switched to Notability. The only reason I switched to it was that GoodNotes stopped working on an older OS that I was using. And at first, I was like, oh, this is a nice feature, and that's a nice feature. And the pen feel was nice. In the end, I ended up going back to GoodNotes. Luckily, I'd made that decision before they introduced a subscription, because that caused one heck of an upset when it was announced. They did back down subsequently, and whatever features you had previously bought, you will be able to continue using. If you're only just trying this out, then there is a free option which is called ColorNote. The only downside of that is that there's no desktop app. And another one is NoteShelf. That is $8.99 on iOS and $6.99 on macOS. All of those options will give you a full digital planner experience on a mobile device. If you haven't got any of them, but you do have Microsoft OneNote, OneNote will give you a partial experience. It does require some compromises, but if it's OneNote or nothing, maybe at work, then you can make it work. The only thing you need for that is a free Microsoft account. So let's go in and actually make these planner pages, shall we? Any questions at the moment before we move on?
Yeah, Patricia's
Hang on. Right, now we can hear you.
Patricia's asking if you've used Zinnia.
No, I haven't. Not yet, no. As I say, I'm pretty much in GoodNotes. But I will add that to the list. Anything else?
Nope.
Right, okay. So, let's head off into here. I do have this running, but my machine decided to be really annoying. Literally just before we went live. I know Affinity Publisher is running, but it doesn't look like it is, does it? So fingers crossed, because otherwise we're going to get nowhere, are we? Let's see how we do. Oh, it sprung to life. There we go. Right, for the purposes of today, I am going to be assuming we're printing them out. The next session, spoiler, is going to be going digital with it. So it's creating interactive planners. Today we're making the pages. We will use these pages in the digital interactive planner next time. So first of all here, I'm just going to create an A4 page, no bleed, no margin. So as I go into there, I've got, I think I made it 8 pages, and they are just plain A4 pages. So these would print out fantastically well on a standard printer, but we don't want to just have blank things like that, do we? So we're going to start off with pretty much the most common type of page you'll find in a planner, which is a dotted grid. Right, you've got a few options when it comes to creating a dotted grid. I am going to have to zoom in here or you're going to see not much at all. I have tried this with different colours and even bright red and pink doesn't stand out that much. Right, there are several different types of dotted grid. The difference between them is the size of the gap. So the standard is 5mm or 1/8 of an inch. So the first thing we're going to need is a dot at this point. So let's go and get 1 dot. So drawing out a dot. It's having a think about it. Here we go. Obviously, I don't want it that big. So if we make it 1mm, then we might be able to see it. I think if you're going to use this, you may want it smaller than that, but we'll stick with 1mm at the moment. And I will give it a colour that hopefully we will at least be able to see. There's a dot. Right, I do think that is too big, but just for demonstration purposes, the principles of what I show you, the size of the dot doesn't matter. If you want the dot smaller on your real page, then just make it smaller. Right, Patricia wants to know, what's the English dimension of A4? A4 is expressed in millimetres usually. It is 210mm by 297. The nearest to the States in terms of letter size, it wouldn't really make that much difference. It is fractionally different, but it is the closest to it. So A4 and letter are usually used interchangeably. Right, so I've got this dot, but the issue is, where do I start with making the grid? Do I have to start measuring it? And the good news is, no. So there's 1 dot. We'll leave it at 1 dot at the moment because I'm trying to work out where to put them. And the fastest way to create this is to go into View, and in the View option, you have Grids and Axes Manager. Now, a lot of people are put off trying this. It does put a lot of stuff on the page, but you can hide it. And you have a range of presets. So in the presets, we have 1 centimetre square, we got 1 centimetre with divisions, triangular, all kinds of stuff. Now, we don't really want them 1 centimetre, but we'll do this just to show the grid. That would be 1 centimetre. So if you wanted them, that's 10mm. If you wanted them 10mm apart, like I'm holding the Option key down and I'm pulling out the next one, and that will twang into place, and you're good to go. But obviously, we don't want them 10mm. We need them 5mm. Well, the good news in here is that you can override this. So instead of having a spacing of 10, I'm going to have a spacing of 5. So pop in 5, press OK, and there we go. So I just pressed enter, and I can put this, and I've got my snapping turned on. So up here, you have a whole range for snapping, and I think I've got pretty much everything turned on. That means that as I move this dot round, it will snap, and it actually shows you, it kind of highlights. It's very subtle, but it actually highlights, so the line is a little bit thicker where it is. It may be that you would be better setting something different for this. So if we change that completely, when we move this around and it gets in place, you can actually see that there is a green line inside the shape and a red line across it. So not particularly helpful that the grid lines are red, because then you can't see the red. But that is how you position it correctly. So that makes it easy to put the next one in place. So if we put that in the right place at the top, now you can hold the Option key down and pull it to where you want it, and it will twang. And you can keep doing that, but who's got that kind of time? So let's get rid of that and rid of that. And Duplicate that with Command and J. So there's now 2 copies of it, one on top of the other. If I move that top copy, moving it along, so it's perfectly placed on the second spot, and then I'm going to zoom out a bit so we can see this happening. Not too much that you can't see it. I'm going to duplicate it again. So Command and J. And what it does is that instigates power duplicate. Power duplicate being, make me a copy of what is selected, but relatively speaking, put it in the same location relative to this dot as the previous dot. And what that's doing is moving it 5 millimeters every time we power duplicate. And you don't need to make sure that these are aligned or anything else either, and just carry on all the way until you get to the other side. So Command and J or Control and J on a PC. And it carries on. And it will actually carry on off the page if I do that, but I'm not going to. So let's just get the right number going across. Right, so you've got an entire row. You could, of course, come back to this first dot. You could duplicate that and you could pull it down and put it in the right place. That's not the right place. There we go. And if you duplicate that, you'll be duplicating downwards. But don't do that because that's long-winded. You've already got all of the dots for one particular row. So if we zoom out so we can see the lot, there they are. If you select the whole of those, you could even group them because you're probably not going to want to manipulate them one by one. Right, then what I can do, zooming in so I can see it. Oh, what key is power duplicate? Command and J, which makes a copy of it. And it will make a copy of anything. But if you move it, so I'm about to do it again. So watch closely. I'm about to do it again. We've got this selected and I'm going to Command and J. That makes a copy of it, but it puts it bang on top of the first one so we can't see it. So there's our first one, there's the second one. If I pull that down and get it to twang into the right place, and then Command and J again, now this time it didn't work because I moved to the first row and then moved back. So I am going to need to do that. I've just done the power duplicate, I'm pulling it into position, and then do it again, and then it will pop them in all the way down the page. So this is much faster at that point. So Command and J and keep going. And you've got a grid all the way down the page. Now if you only want a grid on half of the page, then stop halfway. But other than that, it's quite relaxing, isn't it, to just Command and J, Command and J. So this works for anything. You could use this. This is what I'm saying about, yes, this is a planner page session, but power duplicate just works however you want it to work, irrespective of what type of thing you're creating. Right, that's great, but because the grid is there, it's like, where are my dots? So if I go back into view and I go back to the grid manager and turn off the grid, yes, turn the grid off, you can see just the dots, and we have a dotted page. And how fast was that? And you weren't playing around having to measure things. So based on that, what about lined pages? So I'm moving on to page 2 and working with lines. Now lines, you've got a pen tool. You may want these 5 millimeters apart, you might want them more. Let's go in and have a look at the grid again, and this time let's choose that 1 centimetre one and turn the grid on. We're not concerned about the columns, it's just the rows. So if we wanted our first line to line up with that, you see the green and red is indicating that it's snapped to that place. Click once on there, hold the shift key down, and you're getting a yellow line. So let's zoom in a bit to that. You are getting a yellow line when you hold the shift key down, which is indicating it's going to be straight. So I click at the other end and then go back to the move tool. So I've got one line. This point, I'm going to need to have some kind of formatting on that line. So let's have a look at it. It looks black or very, very dark grey. I think that's black. So I would probably have that as grey, but if I make it grey, we'd have trouble seeing it. So let's leave it as it is at the moment. And you already know that you can power duplicate it. So Command and J. And move it into position there. Zoom out so you guys can see it, and Command and J all the way down the page. I'm going to stop there though. Is this the best way to do it? Are there any problems doing it this way? Well, the good news is no, there isn't particularly a problem with it. It will work. If we go back and we turn that grid off, so back into the grids manager, let's leave that open but off screen. There we go. Turn the grid off. We have lines. We have lines. So yes, that would work. Is that the best way to do it? No, it's not. For the grid, it's probably fine. But for lines, you will give yourself far more options if you do it a different way. Right. The problem with doing it that way is that's okay if you want them 10 millimeters apart. But what if you wanted much narrower lines or much wider lines? Well, if you want wider lines, what you could do is delete every other line. So if I just delete those, that didn't select it. Let's get rid of it. Top one and that one. We now have much bigger lines, but it gives you a lot of playing around to do to make sure that you've deleted the right ones, that you've coloured them right, all kinds of stuff. So is there a better way? There is. It's just more flexible. If you're printing them out, makes no difference. Even if it's a digital planner, it makes no difference to the end user. But for you as the creator, it makes a huge difference. So you can imagine how difficult that would be to try and scoot these up a bit, and then both of those would have to move to make them narrower. It's just generally more difficult, more time consuming. Let's delete the lines and forget Power Duplicate. It's fabulous for dots, but we don't need it for lines. So what I'm going to do, you should be ahead of me here, but nobody's actually saying that. I've got a question there. What colour space did I use? For digital, I used RGB. I'm going to use a table.
There's another question.
Okay, do you want to ask that question?
Yeah, Patricia says, is there a standard circumference for the bullet dots?
There probably is, but it's up to you. And it's going to depend on the size of the page. So more on that next week in interactive digital planning. But some people prefer squares, some prefer circles. It really doesn't matter, it's up to you because it's going to be personally designed by you. Like I said, even the distance between the dots is arguable, never mind the actual size of the dots. And I personally, there's no way I would have anything that I could see as vibrantly as that purple. That was just purely to show you that you can see the actual dots. There are tricks that you can deploy if you would like retrospectively to change those dots. We will be coming up with that shortly. Anything else?
RGB 8, 16 or 32?
I think I went for 16, but 8 or 16 either way doesn't matter. Right, okay, so table, going to do this with a table. Right, but this looks hideous. You're thinking she's insane. Right, I'm not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that out so it fits the page. I don't need all these columns, obviously. So I can click and drag and lose everything but one column. And then make it wide enough so it fills it. And once you click away, that looks pretty much like lines, doesn't it? Why is that better? Well, you get to decide how many lines without redrawing anything. So in here, if I double click to get in, and I think that's okay if it's really narrow. So let's say for that one, I'm quite happy with that. It's really narrow lines and I'm okay with that. But for the next one, I'd like them to be wider. So I click once to copy the table, click to select it, and then Command and C or Control and C. Move on to another page and paste it in. And once I enter the table by double clicking it, I'm going to grab this end, and instead of 40 lines, what if I went for 30? So I've deleted by pulling up 10 lines. Obviously they are the same distance apart, but they won't be if I click once to select it and then stretch the table down. And that is why a table is way better, because you can manipulate this in any way you like and you're not having to move individual lines and make sure that the gap between them is exactly the same. If you go wrong, if what happens is you're in here and you inadvertently make one of them smaller and you think, well, that's fine, I'll fix it by pulling down. It will make the table fill the space, but you've still got an odd line in the middle. You don't have to start again. You can just select the first row, hold the Shift key down, select to the last row, right click and say auto fit the rows to the contents. Not to the contents, make them the same size, the other one. Evenly distribute, and that will sort out the one that's odd. So we can rinse and repeat that by selecting, copying, new page, paste, double click to get inside the table and take that up to 20 this time. And then pull it down to fill the space, and we've got much, much, much wider lines. What else might you want to do with a notes page? And there's a few things that you might want to do, but the most obvious to me when I'm making notes digitally, and I was taking the minutes of governor meetings for many years, and a big bonus when I'm working through it is as we work through the agenda, I want to put, item 4, and I want it to be really clear. So I want an area of the page to be for numbers. So a margin on the left-hand side, maybe even with the margin being red or blue. I used to buy pads when I was at school based on the colour of the line for the margin. I preferred blue. Now, you can, of course, do that in a really simple way by clicking the pen tool, finding a spot that is the right width, hold the Shift key down and click, and you've now got a margin. And I think that one is potentially grey, but we will click it. You can, in there, make that red, and we've got a red margin, or click it again, and I do believe there is a blue somewhere in here. There's the blue. And now I've got a blue margin. Is there a problem with that? Not really, because I can click it and I can move it if I want that wider. But it means that to move this onto another page, I've got to remember there's 2 items, or I've got to group them, which means every time I want to edit the table, I've got to double click to get into the group and then double click to get into the table. So while that's good, let's go for the t-shirt. So clicking the table once to select it, double click to edit it. If I added in up here, and that's possibly hanging off too much so I'm not seeing it, so I'm going to bring it back so we can see it, and I add a second column. Then I just pull it out so it's the right size again, filling the whole page, and use this here to drag that back. Now you do have to be careful, because as you hover over this, you get a double-headed arrow, which means you're sizing the columns. But if you hover in a certain place, you will get a double-headed arrow, which is totally hiding from me now. Let's move it back to there. You're coming back. Oh, no, you're not. Right, the other head, not that arrow, that will move it. But there's another one that looks like 2 arrows, one pointing one way and one pointing the other. And I'm not seeing it at all now, but I was before. Right, that one will skew the table, so we don't really want that one. We want this one, which will allow you to scale where you would like that margin. Now, at the moment, there's a problem with that, which is, yes, the margin's there, and yes, it moves with the table because it's part of the table. The problem with it is, it's not blue or red, it's black. And if I come in here and I start fiddling to change that, I'm going to have to do it multiple times for each row. Or maybe not. So what I'm going to do in here, zoom out so I can see it. In fact, let's go full page on that. Right, if I come in here and I select the whole of that column, in fact, it might be easier to select this one, because it's the right-hand side that is the margin. And I go to the Table tab, I have options in the fill and stroke. So the table tab, I'm going to fold them up because there's lots of things and it's confusing. Right. The only thing you need is to think about the stroke and fill. And this is complicated enough. Right, I've made a selection. What these shapes are is indicating to you where you will format. So with that selected, if I apply a colour to it, it's going to be all the way around it. And I don't want that. I only want it on the right-hand edge of my selection, which is this shape at the bottom. So I click on that to say right. And at the moment, it's got a 0.5 cell stroke and it's black. I'm happy with the width of it, but I'd actually like it red. So I move that across to red and I'm done. In fact, has that actually done it? You swine. No, it hasn't. Come on, you can do this. You know you can. Right, we want that size, so that's fine, but we want it red. Come on. Move across to it. You're not, are you? Am I in the right sliders? Now I'm in the right sliders. Awesome. Right, I do believe I saw that change to red. There we go. And if, like me, you wanted it blue, you could go in and you could change it. There's also something else you could do. And most people don't bother because you think, well, it's red and I want it red. Or it could be, I want it blue. In here, instead of actually choosing a colour, which is a number of a colour, if we go up to the swatches and we add a global colour, I am just going to call this colour margin. I can even, well, just so we know what it is, it's the margin line. And I would like it red. Now at the moment, we're not going to see any change if I do that. So I'm going to choose my blue here. We'll make it a blue colour and add it. So now it's created a document palette and I have a global colour. You'll notice I've not called it blue. I've called it margin line. I've called it what it is. It's called semantically naming these colours. You'll see why. If in here I go in, instead of choosing a colour, specifying an actual colour, I'm going to choose the colour for the margin line. And my margin is now blue. But imagine that you've created 500 note pages with blue. And now you need them red or even green or something else. That would be time consuming to change, but with a global colour, it's not. And it wasn't called blue either. So I can go into it and I can edit the fill of this. And if I would like that to be red again, I'll scoot this over there. And that, what are you doing? Come on. I've got a sticky mouse here. That back, and you can see it changing in real time. If you would like that a totally different colour like green or a dark green, there you go. And it's still called margin line. It's just totally up to you what colour that actually is, and it will ripple through all of your pages. Right, but I did want that blue, so I've picked margin line blue. Okay, so that's how we do those kind of pages. Right, what should we do if what we want is not the dots of page 1 and not quite the lines, but squared pages? Do we go for lines? Do we go for a table? I would go for a table. So I'm going to draw a table on here. You don't have to be that precise when you're drawing the table, because we want this squared paper or graph paper to be 5mm by 5mm square. Now I can make a guess based on the size of my page how many columns that will be. But it's actually easier to add far more than you need. So if I just keep pulling this out and going sideways there, hang on, there are 2 handles on this. I need more sideways. I'm okay that way, but if I come in here and I make that, and I'm pulling that, so I'm zooming out so you can see it, I am pulling that, so we've got lots and lots and lots of them. There is a reason for that, because they only need to be 5mm wide. So I'm going to keep pulling there. Right, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in here and I'm then going to select and say what size I want them. So you can't see what's hanging off, but it is there. There it is when I select it. I go in there. I'm trying to select the whole lot here. You'll also notice when I do this, this is problematic if you're trying to do any maths in these tables, and this is probably why it doesn't work. When it gets to Z, which is 26, it starts again at A. Excel doesn't do that. Google Sheets doesn't do that. It goes to AA and AB and AC. But no, we don't have that in here for reasons best known to them. So I'm carrying across, but now it's gone on to C. So we've got all kinds of weirdness going on. The tables need something doing with them. So I've got them selected. Right, I'm now going to open another one because I'm working with the cells. In here, I can tell this what size I want those cells. And if I want graph paper, I want them 5mm by 5mm. And now they are 5mm by 5mm. But you're thinking to yourself, whoa, there's too many of them. There is. But if I had only made this with 10 columns, when I came to stretch them out, I'd have to add more. So it's easier to add way more than you need, like that, and then actually delete what you don't need. That is easier. Now, I made way more than I needed. But coming into here, you can see that we don't need from Q all the way to the end, like that. So I can just go in there and delete those columns. And if I need, what on earth are you doing? Now, this is a problem with tables. Despite the fact I told it what size I wanted them, it stretched it out. But if I come to stretch it back in, so reduce the size, it'll be 5mm again. All I'm doing with having too many is making sure that I've got enough. Down here, I've only got a handful that I don't need. I've got this little bit overhanging at the end, which is 3mm. So I will leave 60, or I could actually get rid of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it up there. It depends whether you want the lines or not. If you do, then leave 60 in and leave it hanging off like that. And you have now got 5 by 5. It's exactly the same principle if you want them 10 by 10. So if I select, copy, move to another page, put that in, and paste that in, we know that they are 5 by 5. If I go back into the tables, it's really simple to make them 10 by 10. So 10 by 10. Obviously, it's now far too big, so we need to delete the extra rows, which is exactly what we did before. So you go into the table, you grab this end and pull it across to the end of the page, which deletes those, and that has made it shrunk them up. Are we on 10? We are. So what have we got down here? We've got far too many of these, so I'm moving down to the bottom, grabbing that and just pulling them up. Deleting them this way with the double-headed arrows at the end of the table means that you don't have to resize anything. They are now 10 centimetre grid. And again, the benefit of doing that in a table is that, you know, if you suddenly wanted something 20 by 20, you can just edit this table rather than start moving lines about. But I will re-emphasise, if you are not comfortable with tables and you are comfortable with lines, it doesn't make a jot of difference in the finished product. This is productivity at the point of creation. Right, you could then have specialist types of pages. So maybe something like a Cornell notes page. And the good news with using the tables is that I can go into here and think, right, that's not bad at all. It's almost there. It's not quite Cornell note taking, but it's not bad. So I'll take a copy of it and I'll put it on a new page. And Cornell note taking tends to have three main areas. It has an area on the left-hand side, which is like keywords. Then it has a summary at the bottom, and your actual notes go in that bit there. So this is another benefit of using a table, because we can pretty much make that from a table rather than have to draw lines out and generally fiddle with it. So the first thing we would need to do with that is, I'm going to scoot it back over here so I can stretch out and add one column. and then pull it back to the right size, which it is. There's the double-headed arrow. I'll show you what it does. Don't do that unless you actually want that, which I'm never going to want that, ever. But that's what the double-headed arrow does. So you need to move a little bit higher to get the single-headed arrow and move that across. So that's going to be my keywords. These are my notes. And down here with these, what I would want to do is indicate that the bottom of line 24 is a separator of some description. So if I go into my table and we use the stroke and fill options again, in this case, I would want the bottom of that to be a slightly thicker line, just to indicate it's something different. So if I take that up to 1 point, you can see it's a little bit thicker. I might want to take that up even further. So the bottom edge of this, let's make that 2 points. Nowhere near that big, or 3. Yeah. Now, this bit at the bottom, which is your summary, doesn't have the keyword column there. But just like you can in a spreadsheet, if you select this, you have an option here to merge the cells. So that takes away the 2 columns and it leaves you with 1 cell, but it does leave you with a line on the top and the bottom. So I'm just going through those 6 lines there and merging them so I have 6 lines in my summary area at the bottom. There you go. And the same principle that applies to that will apply to anything else. So if you wanted this to have an extra column on the right hand side, or it's something customized for you, the principles are the principles and they just work in exactly the same way. Right, one thing we have not looked at so far is colours of the pages. So we've got lots of pages in here, but they're all on a white background. I like mine quite pale yellow. But what do? I can, if I go into this, we know that this is a table. There would be nothing to stop me selecting the table, going to the table panel. If you can't see your table panel, you need to get familiar with the view menu, Studio, and all of your panels are in here. So if you're not seeing one, like my table of contents is turned off and pre-flight's off and pinning's off, just turn them on in there. But obviously this one is turned on at the moment. So in here, what I could do is I could fill each of these cells with a colour. That's option 1. I could fill the entire table with a colour. That's option 2. But I have a third option. And the third option is to create a master page and make the colour apply to the master page. Which option should I use? It depends. It depends on the page. If you have a page, so let's go to the pages, and let's say it's a grid of some description. So let's say this grid here. In fact, we'll go for the bigger one. Right. If the page that you're working with has the grid on it, but instead of the grid going full size, you have decided for whatever reason to have the grid placed like that, then you have a decision to make. If the colour is applied to the table, the rest of the page will be white. So what do you want? Do you want everything to be the same colour on the page, or do you want to have the option to have different items on the page? Now you could of course change the master. So that's one option. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a master page, because I'm then going to go even deeper with another trick. So I don't have any master pages at the moment. I'm going to create one. And this one is going to be the background colour. In fact, I could say background colour, but it's actually the paper colour, isn't it? But we'll leave it at background colour. Right. And OK to that. And now I'm editing this background colour master page. And it's probably easier just to stick something on it here like this and apply a colour to it. That is the full size there. Right, don't want blue on the outside. Don't know who thought that was a good idea. And in terms of the colour, something yellowish, but quite pale. So playing around with it to get something yellowish, but quite pale. So maybe a little more lemony rather than green. and palish, but I'm going to leave it so it's a colour that you can actually see. It'll just make our life easier. So we have a background colour. That has not rippled through to these pages because we haven't applied it to any of these pages. But I click the first page, scroll down, shift click all of them, right click and apply a master to it. And I'm going to apply the background colour to it. And OK. And then when we go into our pages, they are the right colour. Now, what if I wanted to change them? Oh, it wasn't a global colour. Not too much of an issue because there's only one instance that's declaring what colour it is, and that's on the master page. But for good practice, it should probably be a global colour. So I'm going to make another global colour, but I've already got my colour. So I'm going to use the colour picker to go and pick it up. Click it to apply it. This one is going to be the background colour or the page colour. So let's say page colour. And it's added over here. I will click that to add it. I could, of course, apply anything else, but now apply that one. And now I don't even need to go into the master pages if I want to change it. If I look at this and think it's not the right colour, then I can come into my global colour, edit the fill. And if I want that a little bit more peachy, I can bring it across and now it's peachy. And although I've changed that, not on the master page, I'm actually on a page, because it's a global colour, it ripples through to the master page, which in turn ripples back through to all of the other pages, which is great so far. So I'm going to make that back to lemon. Some people in their planners want pages numbered. What do you do with that? Well, you could go through and you could put the page number on the master. The downside of that is if you want a particular page that doesn't have a page number on, or if you had different masters. So if I go in here and I duplicate this master, I've now got two that say background colour, but we'll have this as the alternative one. So come into here, spread properties, change that to accent colour, and I will apply a different global colour. So I'm going to create a third global colour, which will have this as peachy. So peachy, peachy. I'd love to know why these aren't moving properly, but everything's twanging weirdly. Right, we want peachy, 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 something like that. That'll do. So that one can be our accent colour. And what I'm going to do with it on this particular page here is apply it. So let's go into there, choose that and apply it. It's not applied to any of the pages at the moment because I haven't applied it, but I'm going to grab the first two and I am going to apply a master there. So I don't want the background colour one, I want the accent colour one there. And I want it on pages 1 to 2 and I want to replace the existing, and I'll clear anything that's on there. So now I've got two pages that are the peachy colour and other pages that are the yellow colour. Right, but now we want to think about page numbers. Okay, that would be fairly simple. We would go in here and we would add a page number. We can do that. So if I put this box across there, for some of these pages this isn't going to line up properly. I'm not overly concerned about that, it's the principle of the matter. So I have a text box to put my page number in. So with the box selected, so I'm in the box there, up to text, down to insert, over to fields and page number. And it has put the page number over there looking positively hideous. I have no idea what size I had that set to or anything else either. So let's get rid of it. That's a good idea. I probably would make this yet another colour, but I'm not going to waste time. So no, we don't want that. We want it applied there. So it's like a blue colour. Right. I'm going to leave it at 12 points so we can see it. I would probably put that on the other side. So I will align that to the other side. Right. I've done that on the accent page. So when I go into here, we do have page 1. I go into there, we do have page 2. Problem we're going to have is we're not going to have it on here because it wasn't applied to that. So what to do? Well, we could go back to the master pages and we could go to this one that's got the page number on it, and we could copy and paste it onto the background colour. And the problem with that is, well, if you're with me live, put it in the chat while I rattle through all of the problems. If you choose to change the size of the footer, the page number, change the colour of it, change anything, pretty much the location of it, you've got to do that as many times as you have different coloured master pages. That is where nested master pages come in. So I'm going to make a third master page, this one being my page number. And OK, this one doesn't matter what colour the page is. Go in there and grab the page number, this time cutting it, going back into the page number and pasting it. So I've isolated the page number from anything else that's on the page. The colour, I could have 20 or 30 of these. Right, what do I do now? Because I can only have one master applied to a page. So I could apply the page number and the page number would come through, or I could apply a colour and the colour would come through, but not both. Unless I apply the page number to the accent colour and the background colour. So I'm going to grab this and drop it on the accent colour there, and I'm going to grab it again and add it to the background colour. That should work, shouldn't it? So let's go to the accent colour. Oh dear, no page number. But I had already got the page number on here and I'd applied it. So where is it? And it's actually really simple. Look across at the layers panel and the colour is a solid rectangle and it's sitting squarely above the page number. But if we take the page number and move it up the stacking order, now we can see the page number. Do the same again in here. Now, just before I do that, I'm going to show you what's happening in the pages. The yellow pages, no page number. It's there, but it's hidden. We go to the peachy ones, page number. So, in the master, in the yellow one, we need to move the page number above the colour, go back to the pages, and now we have page numbers. So if you do want all of the pages in your planner numbered, that's how to have two backgrounds applied at the same time. Yes, you could do that by putting the page number individually on the individual master, but you would make your life more difficult when it came to updating it. Right, I see that we have questions.
We do.
Right, off you toddle then. Questions.
Patricia says, can I ask why you didn't do the page types as master pages and then drag the page into my Affinity asset panel to use... Hang on, it's a bit missing there.
I'm lost.
I make the master pages and drag the page into my Affinity asset panel to use for another book. Is that acceptable?
Yes, the only thing I'll say is there are a lot of features inside Affinity Publisher, and taken individually, they're great. So if you think about the global colours, fantastic. If you think about master pages, fantastic. But when you start linking these features together, they become a multiple of themselves. So it's not 2 and 2 is 4, it's 2 and 2 is 27. The time saving multiplies more than you would imagine by adding these features together. So before you add anything to the assets panel, be thinking about text styles, be thinking about StudioLink, be thinking about lots of other things. So I will show some of that in what I've got coming up. So, any other questions?
Yes, she says, I changed the page number, colour, and used many master pages, but what is nested?
Nested is where you have one or more master pages applied to other master pages. So this page number master page is not directly applied to any of the document pages. It is applied only to 2 pages, the accent master page and the background colour master page. If I change the page number page, so for whatever reason, if I'm clinically insane and I go in here, let's make that a lot bigger, and make the text much, much bigger. You're gonna, oh yes, that is indeed much, much bigger. I only have to make the change once. When we look at the pages, that has rippled through, and it will have rippled through, in our case, 2 master pages. Now they're huge. But it wouldn't matter if it was 22 or 202. It would apply to all of them. But the master page itself, the page number, is not directly applied to any page. It's only applied to the masters. And it is known as nested masters or smart masters. So hopefully that answers that question.
One more.
Okay.
When I do drag and drop, it eliminates the previous master stroke replace. I have to stack the masters and unclick the replace box.
No, that's a different way of doing it. You can take the page number and the accent and apply them, but that way madness lies. Because when you come to work with these pages, so I'm now looking at a page, not a master page. If I applied multiple masters to that, I've got to remember that I've applied it, and it stops updating because it's no longer linked either. You've just taken content and you're like you're saying, you're stacking masters on it. No. You go away from Publisher, sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and draw out what it is you want. So in my case, I would say I want to have multiple different coloured pages, but I want them all to have a page number in the same place. And I would know from that how many masters I need. I need 1 master for each colour, and I need a separate master for the page number. But when it comes to applying them, I never apply more than 1 master to any one page. The clever bit happens not on the pages, it happens on the master pages. So I'll show you what will happen if I go into here. You see, it will actually work for me because of the way that I've done it. But let's say I've made another master, and this is just master D. And master D is not an intelligent master. It's not a smart master. All right, if I put that on it and we just put a hideous colour, we're going to have to tone that down a bit, aren't we? Right, let's put that in and say that that is a master page. And I want to apply that master page to one of my pages in here. And what you're saying is, if you come to apply, why are you scrolling the wrong bit? Come on, we need that one. We need to see that up there. That's it. Right. So if you were to apply this master to this page, so just drag that down there onto that, and it will replace it. It won't ask me about changing anything because it's only replacing 1 master. What you're doing is you're applying a master, and then you're getting this message about you've got things on here, do you want to keep them, they'll be orphaned, and it's message after message after message. So the reason I don't have to worry about that is any one of these pages only has a single master applied to it. The nesting is happening inside the master pages, not inside the pages. I'm going to let Mike deal with that.
I've dealt with it.
Excellent. Right, was that it for the questions for the moment? Okay. Right, so moving on to the next bit. I'm going to get... Do I have any pages in here? Oh, I've got 8 pages, but never mind. I will use another file. So we looked at the notes pages. Let's get on to look at... we've done that one and that one and that one. We are on to this one, which is... I'm opening up a file. And on this file, I have mini calendars. So what I've got here, and this was by far the fastest way to do it, trust me on that. What I've got in here is mini calendars. I've got a grid behind them, which I've created, and that's it. So with these, I've got them 2 columns. I've got this one, which is pretty similar, only it's using the 4x3 grid at the bottom. And I've even got that, which is a different type of layout. So the thing is how to do that and how to do it quickly. And I know looks-wise, it's not that pretty, right? But it's not pretty for a reason. I've left it as plain as possible so it can be styled as easily as possible. But how fast can you create something like that? So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to take a look at this one here. I'm not going to go through 12 months because the principle is the principle is the principle. But what I will do is I will delete August. So August is gone, and we'll delete September while we're at it, and February. They're good ones to delete, right? And show you how to work with this. So I'm going to come back to this page when I've created a page to show you the grid. So I'm making a new page. I am inserting this after page 1, I think. So I've got a blank page here. Right, how I created this grid and why I did the grid the way that I did it. If I go into View, and we're not going to the Grid Manager, we're going to the Guides Manager. Normally, this is set up as follows. It has 1 and 1, and you don't see it. So that page, I'll lose that onto the other screen. That page is just an A4 page or a letter size page. It's got a margin of 5 millimeters, which is indicated by the blue border. In reality, I would probably have more of a gap on the left. If you are a planner designer, you will know why. A digital planner designer. You will want to put rings there in your digital planner so it looks skeuomorphic, analog. But I'm just working here on the principles. I'm just trying to set this page up so I could put 12 mini months on it quickly and easily without working out what size they need to be and how they're going to fit. So how I would do that is I would know that my page is 210 wide, but I've lost 5 mil on the left and 5 mil on the right. So that leaves me with 20 centimetres or 200 millimetres across, which is 8 inches. But I'm still not doing the maths. I'm going to go into the Grid Manager, the Guides Manager, and I'm going to say, right, how many columns do I need? Now, you may think, well, you're only using 3, so 3 will do. Yes, they would. But 6 is actually very handy because it breaks up nicely. With 6, I could do 2 of them at a time to make 3, or I could use 3 of them and split the page in 2. So that's why I have 6 columns. I also want to have 6 rows because I want 2 columns of 6 months. So in the rows, I set that to 6 as well. There we go. And I can now use this to lay out those months. So we are at this point, I'll show you laying out August, wasn't it? It was August. Now what I could do is do this by hand, where I draw out a table and I sit here and I type in the days of the month and a month at the top and then put the numbers in depending on what day of the week it starts, but life's too short. So what I have done is I already have some assets in here. So in my assets panel, I have something called a calendar creation kit. And in it, I have groups of assets. So I have headings for the days of the week. I have headings for the months of the year. And I have 4 collections that are mini months with a Monday start with a month, a Sunday start and a Sunday start with the month. If I open these up, you can't see them too well, but there is actually a thumbnail there previewing it. Now, we're going to put August in here. This is August. Obviously today is the 1st of August, so that's handy. It's a Monday start, but I want the month as well. So I need to open up this one, which is MSM, Monday start month, on a Monday, and drag that in. It looks nothing like it's supposed to look, but that's fine. It's completely plain, it's not styled. So if we go into our text styles here, and we look, we've got no styles applied to this. It's a starting point. But before we do anything else with it, you need to understand that we have 2 handles, sizing handles. We have the inner handle and the outer handle. I don't know if you're aware, there is a difference between these. If I use the outer handle and I scale it, it scales the text as well. Well, we don't want that. That's far too small. So, if you scale with the inner handle, it keeps the size of the text. It just squashes it up and squashes it up until it really is ludicrous and you can't see it. Right, I'm going to make that smaller than I need. But this is going to be August and it's going to fit in there. So what I do with it, my guides at the back, the grid that I have created here, enables me to snap to it. So as I do this, you can see I can make it thinner columns. I'm actually fitting that. It is 64 millimeters wide and 44.5 tall. And then I need to go into there and just put August and I'm done. Now, it took a while to make those, but there's only 7 of them needed and then you just fiddle with them. And I've ended up with 4 groupings of 7. So there's 28 blocks and that's it. I can make a calendar for any year with just that. So obviously I want September. And we can tell from August that September's going to start on a Thursday. So I'm going to close up my Monday start because I don't need that. But I do need this one starting on a Thursday. Same principle with this. It's far too big. But using the inner handle, we'll keep the text the same size. So let's put that there and fit that into there. I need to remember to put September in it. But I also need to do one more thing. There are not 31 days in September. So all I need to do is go in and delete 31. The one month that I have left is February, and February started on a Tuesday. So let's bring that in. Scale it to the right size. Get it in position and stretch it out. And with February, I need to get rid of the last 3 days and I need to put February. Obviously, if you do that 9 more times, you've got an entire year. When it comes then to creating another layout, a completely different layout, let's move down here. All I did was move these around and that was it. I even, with one of these, can't remember which one it was. Let's say this one. No, it must have been the tall one, this one. As I was moving them around, it was like, well, that was slightly off and that was slightly off and yeah, that was off as well. And this one was off by a mile. As long as the first one and the last one are in the right place, don't waste time fiddling around with them. Draw around them and use your alignment here. So you want them to all be aligned to the left-hand side. Move them into position. They should still not be right vertically. But in here, you've also got your align vertical and space vertically. You do that, and because the first and the last are in the right place, the rest then fall into exactly the right place. This was just text that I put 2022 in, and I was good to go. So I've got that layout. I did this layout by just putting more text behind it. This one was just a slightly different layout, I think, that had something extra in it. And this one, I put some lines at the bottom. The lines being a table, single column, multiple rows. And if I use this option at the top, which is a preview, so you can toggle preview mode, you lose all of the stuff that's around it. And you can actually see what that would look like. In terms of these months, I would obviously format them so they were really, really pretty. But there is a reason that I'm leaving them as plain as that, because I'm pulling them in from the assets and I don't want them half formatted. How did I create the assets? That's really simple too. I actually have a file here. So the file that you see me working with is this one over here. This one is my original source materials. So let's have a look at that. So if we go into the pages, I do have one master page, which is just the title. Then I've got this one telling me that this is my original source materials, and here they are. So this is a Monday start, and this is Monday and Tuesday. And as we go through, Wednesday and Thursday. So this was where I created them. All I then did, so let's go, and then I've got my examples down there. Let's go into Sunday with the month. And I'm going to grab that and let's go into the table and let's put a fill on the table. Do we have a nice, there, right, just so it's really different. And then in my assets panel, I can create in here a subgroup. So create a subcategory in there. It's having a think about it. Right, assets. You can rename that. So I'm going to call that demo assets. And then with the asset selected, you click on the burger and you say add from selection. And it will add it into the subcategory that you have selected over here. If you do that with all of the things that you need, so I've got the headings for the days and the headings for the month, they are available as well. Why I leave these editable in a separate file is if I suddenly decide I want to, maybe have some formatted. I want to go back to something that is completely independent from anything else. So I just leave them in here so I can quickly format them again and then add assets from them. Right, I see a question about view options.
There's a couple of questions.
Where you go?
Done that one. Patricia says, I feel terribly dense. I'm not understanding why pages are the effective masters. My mind is blown.
It's nested master pages or smart masters. And yes, I can appreciate, first time you see them, you're like, whoa. You need really to sit and think it through and think. Now, we'll probably cover that more next week when we're actually making a digital planner, and we will have to think about all kinds of backgrounds and things. But it is just a matter of working with them and getting familiar with them. The way you're doing it works, and there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. If you're faster doing it that way, then carry on doing it that way. But in the future, you will come back to that file and you will have no clue what is linked to anything because you've unlinked certain things to make certain things happen. So that's why I use the master pages and I use the nested master pages. It gets easier the more you use them, I promise.
The question about views was, I don't know the views that are clicked. Can I see your view tab open and take a screenshot?
Do you mean the view menu? Was that
probably does,
was that in relation to the View Studio? It could have been that one. The other place that you could mean, so that's my View Studio option, and that's what I've got selected, what I've got open. I do have presets as well. So I've got a basic view and a clean install and working with tables. So when I'm working with tables, I have a certain set of tools open. So a Studio preset is a set of tools, and the Studio menu is where you will find all of the panels. The other option you could mean is in the Assets panel, where I've got the days. Would actually probably have made more sense to make those white, wouldn't it? I have this showing in here as a list. That's not the default. So if yours look like that and you can't tell one thing from another, which they're not too bad, you can actually read them, but in there it doesn't even look like there is anything because it's very faint. It is there, and as I hover you can see it, but that's useless. That is useless. So right at the top burger menu, you're in there and choose show as list, and then at least you get the text, and I don't care if I can't see the thumbnail at that point. So I have those set up like that. Right, okay, so let me toggle that and move on. Right, while we're talking about these months, this is why it's important that they are as generic as they can be. So I'm going to close that, which is my original file, so I don't need that. And where were we in our months? We were in here, in our mini months. There we go. Right, another page here. Right, you can time me on this one if you want, and I'll be slower because I'm explaining it as I go. But yes, it took a while to create the assets, but this is why it's worth bothering to create the assets. So in here, on this one, I don't believe I have a margin set up on this. I had it set to 0. But in this one, I'm going to make a 5mm margin around the edge, just so I've got something to work to in terms of this blue border. This is why it's worth taking the time with the assets. matter. How fast can I create a full page monthly layout that's formatted for August? Well, before you start, how are you doing this? Well, I probably want to put August at the top there. So I will actually type in August. Do I need to type in August? No, and it isn't even working that well either. Because in here I have the months. So I grab August and I put it on there and I scale it to whatever I want it size-wise to be. I will then centre that and I will format that. So let's flip that round. We've now got a pink August. Right. But now I need to create a proper month and have it look nice. So I don't need it with the month at the top because I want the month separate, but I do want a Monday start. It's August and August starts on a Monday. So this is the point to start the clock. So I'm going to drag that on. There it is. Where do I want it lined up at the top? About there. I want it to fit. So I'm going to pull this down. Not bad, but not great. It's still far, far, far too plain. So I want quite a nice, big, chunky, classic font. So we'll go for Trajan. There. It needs to be much bigger than that. So let's take that up to, 24 should do. I would like on there to have a background fill on just what's selected. So in there, with that selected, can we have the pink? Is our pink there? That'll do. It's probably a bit much, but we'll go for it anyway. So I've got the pink at the top. That needs to be considerably smaller. We don't need all of that space. So I'm going to make it considerably smaller. Then I'm going to stretch it back out so it fills the space available. But we wouldn't want that to look like that because we probably want to write in it. Now remember, this started life as an asset. It doesn't need to finish up looking like it did before. So I've got the text that I want in there. All I need to do now is instead of having it centered, I want it aligned to the top. Instead of having it centered that way, I want it left aligned to the top. But now it's too close to the top, but that's okay. With that selected, we'll come across to here. And in the cell, you can specify a size for the cell, but you can also specify some inset sizes. So if I inset that by 2 or 3 millimeters, perfect. And that took less than a minute. I've probably got that down to about 20 seconds if I don't talk my way through it. But again, it started life from a plain asset. And from that point, you can do what you like with it. You could have a standard calendar, a mini calendar, whatever you needed with it, or a full page like that. And it's easy to work with. Right. In one of these files, I had a starting point. It was this one, to create a tracker. So I'm going to be creating with this a water tracker. There. So I've got a title for it. All I really need is something that looks reasonable that I could colour in with my pen. Right. Oh, I see we're back again. Could you deal with him?
I've already banned them.
What we might have to do is make it so there's things in the chat that nobody wants to see. We could make it that only subscribers to the channel can comment. So that is something we might have to think about in relation to that. But if you're watching on catch up, it probably shouldn't be there. So fingers crossed it's not. So we just really need a way to track water consumption. Right, a nice way to do it is to go and get a shape. There is the tier tool and it looks like a drop of water. So as I'm drawing it out, there we go. Now, thing to remember with this. They say 8 glasses of water a day. So I'll just pop 1 on there. Now, to make this the best way, in case you change your mind, we need to think about what colour it is. So at the moment, if we went in and said it's pink, if we change that pink, would it change in the other one? And the answer's no. But we do have a global colour called Water Tracker Fill. So if I get all of my water trackers and I apply that fill, And then I put that one over there. And all I need to do with these is then duplicate. So that's 4, 5, 6, and that's 7. Right. I'm deliberately not being very organised with how I do that because the first one and the last one are in place. So all I need to do up here is make sure that I align them in some way. So they're aligned to the bottom, and then use this option for space horizontally, and that will space them out. Great. So I move those up a little bit. Right. That means if I go into the water tracker fill and I edit it to make it much lighter, it changes. The header changes and all of these change. So that's great. As far as it goes, that is great. It does mean if you decide to change the colour, you can do that. But there's a few things that you can't do. So we couldn't, for instance, select one of these and think, well, yeah, we like the fill, but it would be great on the outside edge if we had a border on it. It only changes the one. The only thing with these that is linked is the fill colour, and that's because it's a global fill colour, as the name implies. That's the only thing it is. It also means that when we go into these, I'm double clicking, we have a couple of options. This one changes what that looks like that way. You can take it down like that. We have this one at the top, which moves it left to right. Okay. And my particular favourite, the one in the middle, which gives it a bit of a kink. But notice, you're only changing one. You're only changing one because the only thing that these have in common is a fill colour. It does mean that even if you've changed the shape and applied a border, you can go in here and change it, and it will change the background colour of all of them, but it won't do anything in terms of, if I decide I much prefer this shape, I've got to delete 6 of them and copy this one and generally fiddle around. We don't want to do that. No, we don't want to do that. So here's what we do instead. Right, we have a feature called StudioLink. So what we do is we initiate StudioLink. This time we're going to Designer. So I click the Designer options, and I am now actually in Designer with lots of things flying around up here, which I don't need pinning. But I do need one of these. So I'm actually with that one. Why is nothing working? I'm going to delete it. We don't need that. So let's delete it. Right. So what I need to do, we're not interested in assets or anything. It's symbols that we're looking at. Why are we going to Affinity Designer for symbols? Because they don't exist in Affinity Publisher. But in Designer, they do. So I'm going to choose one of these and I'm going to give it a name. So this is water, glass of water, whatever you want to call it, but we'll just say water. Right, at the moment, check down here, nothing is orange. We've just got multiples of these. But this one, we really need to be a symbol. So with it selected, you click Create Symbol. You now have a symbol. This one on the canvas now has an orange stripe on it. These do not. Just that top one there does. So at this point, what I would do is add my symbol down there, add another symbol down there. The first and the last are lined up, so all I need to do now is get 5 more of them in the middle, not concerned how neat and tidy they are. 2, 4, 6, 7. Right, and do exactly the same as I did before. So I am aligning them to the bottom edge and I'm spreading them out vertically, or I would be if it was working. Right, there we go. Things are a bit slow at this end. It must be the spam. I have said apply, it's just taking its sweet time. Right. At this point, we are in Designer, but I am heading back to Publisher. So I click my Publisher button and I am back in Publisher. Doesn't look like there's any difference going on here. But I now have more abilities inside Publisher, despite the fact it doesn't have an interface to this feature. If I double click on one of these, to the point I get my red handles, and I make that kinked to the left, the ones that are symbols, so in our layers panel, the ones with the orange stripe, which is this one on the right hand edge, and all of these, oh, they all change. So this is when Patricia was talking about, should I have this in the assets or should I do this there? This is how all of these features come together. You may have thought, oh, I'll put a global colour on that and stop there. But you would be missing out on what I'm doing now, which is I'm actually changing the shape and I'm changing one. All the others are updating. This also means we know it's a global colour. So if I go in and I edit my global colour, yes, the ones that are not symbols will update. But what I wouldn't have been able to do is go into the stroke of it and apply a stroke, make that bigger so we can see it. I can make many, many more changes, despite the fact I don't have an interface to create symbols in Publisher. The only time I need to go into Designer is to actually make it. They work perfectly in here. So any change that I wanted to make to that, let's say we wanted to kink it back the other way, you can do. This is why I wouldn't stop thinking about a global colour. At the beginning, when you're a bit naive with it maybe, or you've got all of these features and you've no idea how they link together, just create a list of features. And then when you want to do something like this, work through the list. So is there a way a symbol could help me? Well, it can't hurt. Even if you don't intend to make any changes, it can't hurt. I think the most advanced thing that I've done with it is I wanted a table and I wanted symbols, and Publisher doesn't have symbols and Designer doesn't have tables. So I did a bi-directional StudioLink thing that was going on. But this one is going one way. This is going into Designer, creating a symbol and coming back in here. If you wanted to do anything else more complicated with it, then you can go back into Designer and your symbol is there for you to work with. In what way? Right, well, let's grab these and copy them and paste them and pop them down there. Right, let's say with that, I decided I wanted another global fill, so something wholly different. So make another global colour. Doesn't matter whether you do this in Designer or Publisher. So let's have something very, very different. Let's have some kind of pink. Right, water 2, alternative colour. Right, and pop that in there. Is this coming through or not? You're saying unnamed, but I don't believe you. Document, there we go, water 2. Right, if I go into one of these and I apply this as a fill, it's going to apply to all of them. Oh dear, that's not what I wanted. All right, so let's undo that. What I could do here is detach that, which means what I change in here now will only affect that one. And then I can reattach it. Oh, no, I don't. Hang on a minute. Forget everything I just said. It's not detaching it. Don't detach it. Don't detach it. Right, what you need to do is turn the sync off. And then I change a colour and then I apply the sync again. Which means, irrespective again of whether I'm in Designer or I'm in Publisher, so I'm going back to Publisher, right, I can click on any of these, go in and change that, and even though that one has a different colour, it still changes shape. So sit and think it through. What is it you would like to achieve, or what editing capabilities would you potentially like to have in the future? If I had never intended to change those again, you could argue it's a waste of time. But in the future, instead of, I could be designing something completely different. I could come in here, copy those, paste them into a new document and have all the abilities that I've got right now. Right, okay, let's come back from that and that. I figured I'd need to do, it would be ridiculous not to do something like a cover or a divider. So let's do one of those. Can we use this page still? And where's my finder? Right, let's get that back over there. Am I in the right place doing the right thing? Full page. Ooh, yes, before we get onto the divider. What we may want to do is to create a standard planner page. Probably again with our... am I in the right place? I am, but I'm not seeing the right thing. It's really struggling today. Right. I want to put in some margins, so I've got my 5mm again. I'm looking at a daily page, a standard, fairly boring daily page at this point. But I want on the left-hand side of this, I want kind of time blocks here for the day. So I'll pop a table in. It's got far too many columns and rows and all the rest of it, but I'll take that across there. I would bother to put grids on it and take it halfway. So that's 100, 250. Yep, that's right. That's halfway. This needs to go back over there. What I'd like to do, if you can remember those old style planners that you used to see that had times on it, I want to put times in here. So down here, I'd like some times. But your day may start differently to my day. My day starts very late. I got to bed this morning at 8:20. So obviously I wasn't up until like 3 in the afternoon. So your timings may vary from my timings. You could, of course, sit here and type them all in, but that way madness lies. So what I have is a spreadsheet. It does need to be an Excel spreadsheet. I've not tested numbers, but Google Sheets, it didn't end well. It couldn't copy and paste properly. But what I've got is this sheet, and all it does, it's got numbers in it. So if I wanted to number something, I just come in here and copy what I want. So now you've scrolled down, didn't want to scroll down. Have a think and scroll up. So I can just select these. So I've got my 24-hour version and I've got my 12-hour version. Probably most of you don't start work at midnight. I'm working at midnight, but that's me. But some people are this 5 a.m. start thing, aren't they? Yeah. So all I need to do is take a start time and scroll down and stop at the finish time. It is thinking about this, but the machine is struggling. It is hot. Oh, let's say you're working till 8:30, shall we? That'll do. It's a long day. Right. With it selected, all I need to do is copy it. Now, these, as you can see, are calculations. So I didn't even type them into Excel. Never mind type them into Publisher. Didn't even do that. Right. So in here, all I need to do is, at the top, probably have some kind of thing that says time and something that says details. And then grab this, because it's in this column that I want it, and paste it in. And it pastes in the times in the right format. I've got too many columns. That's okay. Too many rows, rather. Just lose them and then pull it down and it will scale it. Obviously, at that point, want to grab the whole thing and have that aligned to the centre vertically. That would make more sense with the timings if it was on the other side, but I could, with this, make that narrower, and that gives me more space for the details. But it probably still does make sense if that is aligned over there. Actually, what would make most sense entirely is if the whole lot were aligned to the left. That would make much more sense, because I deliberately, when I put this in, are you going to do this? Oh, come on. There we go. I deliberately put in the extra zeros with this. And it's that fast to make your agenda for the day. The other things that I would put over here are then blocks. So at the point that you've created something like this, it's probably something to add to the assets panel. Don't recreate that every time. Just have one that's a 5 a.m. start, a 6 a.m. start, a 9 a.m. start, or whatever. Just have a whole range of them and add them to the assets. In terms of building up planner pages from what's in the assets, it could be that I know that this one is a Monday, so I'll drag and drop my Monday on it. Obviously, I probably want a date on that as well, but hold that thought. So I've got my date on it. I would probably, with this, put a mini monthly calendar on it as well. So I know what month I'm in, drag that in, get that the right size, and put that at the bottom. So now the planner pages become much easier to build like Lego bricks. You just drag and drop on from your assets, stuff you have already created. Time block yourself some time, couple of hours at the weekend to make some assets, and then building these pages is a doddle. I've also got some extras in here. So another idea for a page, I mentioned memory pages. Right, in here I need a cork board then. So I go into the stock and just type cork board. Don't know if it was one word or two. Any of those will do. Let's go for that one. Drag that in there. Is that a good way to work? No, don't do that. I'd have to stretch it and scale it and generally fiddle with it. Don't do that. Make an image placeholder, a picture frame. Are you going to think about this? You are, like that. Again, it's got that blue stroke on it from what we were doing, so let's lose the blue stroke. We don't really want it filled with blue either. So that is what we've got, our picture frame. Move this inside it, holding it over the name, and we don't have to fiddle. Now that looks mighty big. So as I'm looking at this, I realise to have the correct grain, it would probably be better to actually rotate that, and that way I can make it that bit smaller. So if I rotate that round, I can use the scale to make it smaller, and then the grain doesn't look too big. And it's already self-constrained to that. They're very determined to get a date with me tonight, aren't they? Have we made it big now we're getting spammed? Oh, well, it keeps Mike on his toes. Right, so I've got the board. I happen to have some assets to make this work. So in my extras, I've got pins and I've got a Polaroid. So if I drag my Polaroid on, there's my Polaroid. That is really simple to create. If you want to see it created, all you need to do is make a rectangle. So grab a rectangle. I'm not going to worry about size, principle that matters. Right, we need some kind of fill on it so we can just see it. I think it was some kind of grey, but it was lighter than that. So it wasn't quite white. It was sort of like that. Then I need another one. So it's probably easier at this stage to duplicate that and give it a different fill. So I can squish this down in both directions to create the top half of the Polaroid, like that. Okay, not bad. I think that needs to be a little bit taller. Right, you do not leave that like that. I need to punch a hole in it. So grabbing the pair of them. Now you're in Publisher. This is easier in Designer, but you can do it in Publisher. I need to go to my layer geometry and I need to subtract one from the other. Now it has a hole in it. Don't leave it there either. You could pop a graphic behind it, but life is a lot easier if you put a picture frame like that in place behind it. It's not behind it at the moment. It needs to be up there to be behind it. Then the two of those could be grouped, but before we group it, it had some text on it that said memories. So I'm just going to grab Monday and type the word memories and to make that a bit bigger. How big can we get away with? That'll do. So I've got 3 elements that are making up this Polaroid. That's it. Grab the 3 of them and group them. One thing I could do is grab that picture frame and give it some kind of fill, like that. And now that is almost identical to that one. And it means if I drag and drop my images to it, they'll work perfectly. So, in my memories over here, in fact, let's drag it into that one. There's Lady Lola. No, you're supposed to be dragging it inside that, not inside its own thing. Come on, back we go. Oh, it's struggling, it really is. Let's try dragging it to that one. You know, one of these things where it worked yesterday? That. Oh, you're not working properly. Why are you not working properly? Right, we'll do it a different way if you insist. Maybe it needs to be on the board. Let's try that first before we do anything else. So let's put that on the board and put that on the board, which is far too big. If I drag off the actual place it's going to live, I think it opens in a separate window. So let's try Lady Lola for a third time. Third time lucky. There she is. Right, she needs to be much tinier in there. And I can use that to position her perfectly. Need to see her feet though, don't we? There we go. And that was the year she arrived. That was 2019. There she is. And oh yes, last week she was rather bored in one of my sessions. Or was it your session? We were doing something anyway and she was bored senseless. So we got a big yawn. So let's put that one in. Let's make that a bit bigger. No, come on. Wrong tool. Let's move that down a bit. And there she is. Now, also in here, in my extras, I've created some push pins. So if we wanted to have that look like it's pinned on there, I can do that. And move that round a fraction. Move the pin into place. Get a different pin for this one. So this is pushed in from that side. Oh, Lady Lola's missing a bit over here, isn't she? What have I done? She won't be happy. There we go. That's better. And of course you could add the pin to the group, etc., etc. And that way, when you move it, it moves with the pin. So this is really for creating pages that are like, not pages that will change when they're in the digital device. They are pages that you create of memories that you add to the thing ready for the year. She's adorable, isn't she? Right.
I'd like a pin.
You'd like a pin? What, for these people?
No.
No one can hear you. So shall I make your mic live?
Okay.
Where you go?
No, I'm just saying I'd like a pin. It's something I always wanted to do.
Right, I'll show you that in a future demo then. Mike wants to know how to make a pin. In terms of laying out things like this, it's also really easy in the assets to have other things that you can add, like my to-do block. So there's my to-do block, and I've got a notes block that I have created. So I build up the planner pages from components that I've added as assets. And then it's really easy to build up the planner page that I would like. Right, I promised, didn't I, a cover page and a divider. Well, at least a divider. We'll go for the divider. Right, the divider needs to be, come on, scroll. Right, there we go. Let's just put it on this one. What I'm going to do with that one is I'm going to put a shape on it. So if we imagine that we're making a divider for November, I have a shape. The fill in terms of colour doesn't matter because I'm going to use this tool on the left, which is the fill tool. And in the type of fill, I am going to choose a bitmap. It will bring up a file open dialog allowing me to choose a bitmap, which is not in that one. It's probably going to be in here somewhere. Come on. Stop having to think about it taking forever. Right, divider page. We've got 4 different colours here. We've got an orange one, a red one, a purple one, or a white one. So I think we'll go for the orange one. I'm going to open that up. So what it's done is it's taken a graphic that is a pattern graphic. So what the graphic will normally look like, let's have a look at the graphic. So bringing up a preview of said graphic, right, centre you. That's far too big, isn't it? You can't see it. Opened up on the other page, that's the problem. Right, let's bring it on. I wonder if the machine's going to last the session. Right, let's do that. That's what it looks like. So it's a pattern because this part here on the right marries up with that part on the left and so forth. So that skull there, over on the right hand side is the other bit of it, and that's what makes it a pattern. So I've used the pattern to fill a shape. Then I get this L-shaped handle, which means, I click that, I can drag it in and I get far more cats and pumpkins and skulls. Or I can stretch it up and I get far fewer. I can even with that grab hold of it and turn it round and have a play with it. So if I wanted something like that, lots of them. This one rotates and scales it. This one rotates and scales it. This one lets you move it up and down. So if I want to make sure that at the top I don't have too much of a cat missing, and I can move it left and right, so I get it in position, then I would probably put what I'm going to use as a cover at the bottom. Now, if you look at it, it's got the same fill in it. So I need to go with this and make sure that I've taken off the type of fill, which was a pattern fill. It was a bitmap. So in the fill over here, it's a bitmap. And I don't want it to be a bitmap. So let's grab hold of it. And with the fill tool, instead of bitmap, I'm going to take that up and say I want a solid fill on it. I don't want that colour of solid fill. What I want is this background colour. So let's get that background colour. Click on there. Zoom into that bit. And this time I want my headings for the months because I already have November. Don't want any spelling mistakes, do I? And then I can have that bigger. So let's try that. There we go. So I would have 12 of those in my planner, and you can design them in any way that you see fit. But I do like my cats. I do like him. Right, let's move back over there and there and have a look. And I think we've covered everything up to the corkboard. Corkboard was my last one, so I've thrown in divider pages as well. So let's get back in here and have a look at next week after we've recapped. So it was apps used to create planner pages, which can be anything you like, but some have benefits over others. Options for using them was the app that if you want to go digital rather than print them, the app that supports that or apps that support that on devices. Then we did notes pages, we did dots, we did lines, we did margins, we used tables. The mini calendar pages, really easy when you've got something to work from. So initially, I would suggest you either take some time and create the base options. You can even buy those from certain places to save you bothering to do that. The monthly pages was the full month page, which was a doddle once you've got a mini calendar to work with. Then there was the daily pages, which were built up from components like the habit tracker and the notes bit and the to-do today bit. And the divider pages, which we did November, and the pages for memories where we actually built a Polaroid while we were at it. So that was what we covered today. We have future sessions. If you remember, that was today's. It was the start of a new series. So although it's planner pages, I'll be using a whole range of features that translate to any type of thing that you want to create. But next week's is particularly for creating interactive digital planners. So we will talk about page size. We will talk about whether we want it landscape or portrait or single page or double page, and how to wire everything together. So even when you have hundreds and hundreds of pages, you'll be able to navigate by just tapping or using your pencil. So we have a range of extra sessions coming up, which will be on my newsletter this week. Right, that went very quickly, didn't it? Right, stop. You're moving and you shouldn't be. Right, you can get rewatch this and all the other stuff that I do at youtube.com/ElaineGiles. We have a dedicated playlist for all things Affinity. So that is Affinity Designer, Photo and Publisher on Windows, Mac and iOS. If it's only Affinity Publisher you're interested in, we have one of those as well. If this is your first session, and like I said at the beginning, I had heard from people that's like, I want to know about planners, it's my first session. We have done, in the last couple of months, a whole range of sessions, and some of the principles that we covered in those, like layouts, we did mastering page layouts, are just as applicable to planners as anything else. You might think a table of contents not applicable to a planner. Oh, it is. You can make a tappable or clickable table of contents for your entire planner, which saves you doing it manually, doesn't it? We also did in an index that would work in a planner, but you probably wouldn't bother. But you will be putting photographs in. So we did one on photo books. We did advanced photo books. We followed that up with magazines, and then we did tutorials. In terms of StudioLink, if you want to know more about that, one of the features that I've done a video on about that is using snapshots in Affinity Publisher, because just like symbols, snapshots are not supported, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. You just need to know the trick. Right, if you found it useful, please subscribe to the channel. We would love to have you along with us. And there's the notification bell that you can hit to be notified every time we go live so you don't miss anything. We love you guys. You love us. You could give us a like. I think I noticed fly through the chat a super chat, which I will get to very shortly. So thank you very much for that. Oh, awesome. Right. The VIP list is where you will get first dibs on everything that's coming up, like the interactive planners and what else we've got coming up. I did say in last week's mail that I sent out that the planner we will end up with at the end of this series of demonstrations will have over 1,000 pages. I don't intend to do them all manually, so there's a lot of tricks involved to get to that level and get there quick. So do join us at VIP, totally free, and you will get first notification of all of that happening. But it's time for questions and answers. So I'm going to need to see the questions before we go any further, aren't I?
2 questions.
Right. Okay. So first of all, have you put into the right page the super chat so I can thank them? He's probably not, you know. I'll probably have to scroll back. But I will do that. So first of all, we'll take the questions and then we'll do the super thanks. So, questions, Mike.
2 more questions. How do you save a dot page for use in various journals and planners?
I would save that as an asset and then use it in various ways. I'd probably create more than one asset of it. I would probably do it where I have a full page of dots and then a half page of dots and maybe a block of dots. So if I wanted to put some dots on in a column, so we had the water tracker, if I wanted some dots underneath that, I'd probably have a range of dotted pages, but ultimately the trick is to save them as an asset and then just drag and drop them on. You do have to be careful with that you do save them in the right size, because if you start stretching the dots, that you don't want to stretch the dots. That's not good. Don't stretch the dots. You will end up with the dots not being 5mm apart. Another option is to make a full page and then delete the dots you don't want. But they still need to be made into an asset. So let's just drag and drop them into the assets panel or add from selection. Next question.
Next question. Right. What about a 2-page calendar spread?
2 pages in terms of like a yearly planner, that kind of look?
That was patience. No, that was patience.
What about it? In terms of creating it, well, tonight's demonstration was mainly for print. Next week is digital. So one of the things I'll create is a yearly view that will go across 2 pages. Not difficult to do. Again, you could do it in one of 2 ways. You could create an asset of it, so it's January to December, or you could do it the clever way. So I think I'll share the clever way, which is you want to have a framework that is a 12-month to a view plan that goes across 2 pages. But wouldn't it be nice if it could be an academic year plan at 1 minute and a standard plan at another, or start in February if you like? And you can do all of that by, instead of creating a January to December one, you create a framework and you use Excel to copy and paste the dates into it. It's fabulous. Mike's seen that demo, haven't you? It's amazing. That was the demo. Mike's looking a bit blank. That was the demo that I did, that you headed off to bed and I was saying it just doesn't work. It's garbage. And then when you got up in the morning, it was like Christmas morning, wasn't it? I'd beaten it into submission. It's a great demo. So I will show you how to do a double layout next week. Right, next one.
Sort of related question. I'm not sure if it's a colour setting on my printer or an Affinity, but when I print anything that has red in it, my Epson EcoTank printer, it comes out more brick colour.
Oh, probably the printer. I do some tests with it. So if you create a file, doesn't matter where in, Affinity Publisher, Affinity Designer, and you just put different colours of reds in it and put the hex codes underneath and print it out, find the one that looks right and use that. There is colour calibration, etc. I've never really bothered overly with that because most of the time, I can calibrate to the nth degree for my own printer. But if I then send that out to print, then I need to calibrate it in a totally different way. So I tend to just use the colour space that they recommend and not worry too much about what it looks like at my end. There was only once that went awry where we ended up with a brown one that looked a bit bluey. But once we saw it, we quite liked it, so we weren't concerned about it. But yes, it's probably just the printer. It could be... I mean, you could even take that ink out and put it in the same model of another printer, but just a different printer, same model, and it looks a different colour. It's just the way that they are. I've never really, even with physical devices like the Spider, I've never really had any success with that. So that's what I would do with it. It could be that you've got it set one way and the printer wants it set another. So one option is to go through the printer manual and make sure that what you've got set on your Affinity Publisher is matched with the printer. If it's an Epson, was it an Epson? Was that mentioned? Was it an Epson? I don't know. I don't see it mentioned there, but it could be.
Samsung.
A Samsung. There's probably a manual online and probably help things online. It's doubtless...
Oh, no, Epson. Mrs. Arnold's got one.
I thought I mentioned. I thought I saw that it was an Epson. Yeah. They have fantastic support, so it's always worth giving them a call and just is this normal or what do I need to do? They do have great support. Hewlett Packard, on the other hand, I had no joy with them, did I?
No,
they were sneaky. They moved from Britain to Holland, and I had to make an international call. No, don't go there. So I think we had Epsons, didn't we? We had Canon, and then we got an Epson. Yeah. They are the real popular ones, so I would just say print out a range of blocks in certain hex codes and find the one that works best. Right, is that it? Do we have any more?
There's a thank you.
Right, there's a thank you. Where you go with the thank you?
Love your tutorials, so glad I managed to catch you live. I missed the beginning, so I'll have to go back, but wanted to take the opportunity to say thanks.
You are very welcome. That is SFN, isn't it? So thank you very much. Now, it looks like you've managed to capture some of these super chat things here now, doesn't it? But I don't want to miss anybody. So if I miss you, it's Mike's fault.
There were 3 of them.
Right, so Dale, thank you very much. That is much appreciated. Debbie S, thank you very much. And where's the other one?
And there was...
I can only see 2 in my list, but my list's quite long.
There was Patricia at the beginning.
Oh, well, couldn't even see the chat at the beginning, so thank you very much, Patricia. If there was anybody else, thank you. I will see the full list of this when I finish, but at the minute I've got the chat in episodes, and it seems to be quite a lot of people wanting to take me out for dinner, which is very kind of them, isn't it?
Oh, I've got rid of them.
Oh, Mike's a bit jealous there. Well, that's never happened before. Right, let me know in the chat with a yes or no, right? Are you subscribed to the channel? Yes or no, simple as that. If everybody that's commenting is subscribed, then one option is to make it that you've got to subscribe to comment. That doesn't stop them subscribing and then unsubscribing, obviously, but it might just dissuade them fractionally. You never know. So just let me know if you are subscribed or not, a yes or a no. If more of you are not subscribed, then obviously that's not really going to be an option, or we're going to cut you off at the pass. Oh, we've got some yes. Oh, Patricia likes Brother printers. Our printers are Brother. We like Brother printers because Brother, the manufacturer, is in Newton Heath, which is where Manchester United formed. Don't talk to us about them this week, we're not pleased. But it's about 10 miles from our front door. So when I had my first printer and it went funny, I rang them up. This was early 90s. I rang them up, and at the time, the home consumer market wasn't huge. So it was like, oh, so you're a home user? Yes, I'm a home user. So they came out and they fixed it. They sent a man out, a little engineer with a box to fix it. It was amazing. Later on, I wanted something doing. I think it was out of maintenance. And they let me go down to their warehouse and walk in with this printer. And he said, I'll send somebody out to fix it. It was amazing. Brother are fantastic. So we always go for Brother, don't we? Our printer died about a year and a half ago. And while we only print like one page every 2 months, I said, we need a printer. So it was like, well, which Brother printer are we buying? Because they're still 10 miles up the road. So yes, they are very, very good, that. Very, very good, Brother. Oh, Renee's got a Brother printer as well. Right, I'm getting lots of yeses and no nos. So one option that I've got next time is that we could make it that you can't comment unless you're subscribed. Ha! Well, do you know what? They'll probably subscribe and unsubscribe, wouldn't they? And you blocked them, I presume, and they just kept coming back. Yeah. That's not good, is it?
And I've reported them every time.
That'll keep YouTube busy for days, I should imagine. So next time, it's digital shenanigans. We'll use some of the pages, like the corkboard page and the diary page, but I did want to mention that while next week it was quite difficult to work out what order this should be in, because it makes sense once you've got one daily page. You could leave the person who's purchased it, if it's a digital planner, to create all the others. That's not good form, is it? Not good form for a couple of reasons. One, the pages wouldn't be in the index, the table of contents, if you go the way of creating a table of contents. But also, they'd have to write the date on them while they're at it. So, you can data merge pages. But there isn't much point data merging the pages and ending up with 500 or 600 of them if you don't know how to wire them together. So I decided in the end that next week we'll be wiring together what we've got as a principle. But then we'll be doing data merge, and we'll be doing it in 2 different ways. One is a standard data merge, which will give you multiple pages. So if you have an Excel file with your dates in, whatever dates they may be, they could be academic year or standard year, whatever, you'll be able to create all the pages that you need. But that is not the way to create a weekly layout. So if, like bullet journaling, you want a series of spreads that taken together are a week in your planner, you need a whole different data merge thing going on. So data merge will be 2 separate sessions. So again, although what I'll be creating is planner pages, if you may need a multi-page data merge being a block and creating multiple blocks in the output file, it doesn't really matter whether it's planner pages or not. But it would mean that when we data merge it, we will have 52 weeks of multiple spreads making up one page. And then we'll have the fun of linking them together so you can navigate to them. Then we've got a couple of specialist sessions coming up after that. But as I say, full details in the mail this week. So, did I thank everybody that sent in a super chat? I do hope I did. If I didn't, then I will thank you later. But thank you very much. It's much appreciated. And thank you for all the offers of a date. But, you know, no. We'll sort that out. Oh, Dale says, for something specific he learnt in the last session. Oh, I'm liking that. I am liking that. Okay, I'm working backwards now. I'm trying to find it. So I've got Dale and I've got Debbie S. And then I've got all of this. Now it says view deleted message because I'm seeing them as deleted. Hopefully you're not seeing them full stop. So, oh, there's a lot of them, isn't there, Mike? Mm-hmm. Must have been very popular tonight. Right, last shout for questions before we head off and have something to eat, which I'm thinking might be ice cream. Oh, I quite fancy that. Right, still going backwards. I think I'm near the beginning. It was Patricia. Thank you very much. Not done super chat before. You're worth far more. Thank you very much. Much appreciated, Patricia. Right, I think I've got all of that. So, First off, you can put your questions in right now. Last shout for questions. Oh, SFN says, I love data merge. I'm such a nerd. You're going to love this. Oh, you are going to love this. If you think of anything in the week or anything specific you'd like covered about planner pages in this series, then ping me in the week. So there'll be a mail coming out either tomorrow or Wednesday morning, which will have all of the timestamps in for this session and more details of the next sessions. Oh, Kim now wants ice cream. I'm predicting, Kim, it's going to be a salted caramel one. And it's a hard choice between the salted caramel one and the white one, unless I decide, you know what, I'll have both. Could well do that. Could well do that, but it's going to be nice. Oh, homemade chicken soup now, that sounds delicious. But it's too late here for that. It's definitely ice cream at the moment. It is just past 10 o'clock at night, so I'm not going to have my heading off downstairs and making chicken. Because we did that before with fish, didn't we? Oh, and Mike had duck. I'm having duck tomorrow. So now you know what we've got planned food-wise for the week. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because meal planning... yeah, you could have meal planning pages in your planner, couldn't you? Right, okay. Oh, Kim says she's jealous. We've got limited edition magnums at the moment, Kim. They're like standard magnums, but they seem to be double chocolate dipped. Now, we haven't got any of those. They are hideously priced. I mean... standard ice creams, you can probably get about 3 for £1, but not if they're magnums. They're like £6.50 for 3. But if they could actually get some here, then we might venture to try one of those. But they're limited edition, and the thing with those is if you have them, and you really, really love them, you're really annoyed when you can't get any more. Whereas if it was only like an idea and you didn't actually try any, you're not as annoyed. So we'll have to see how that goes. Do you remember the coconut toffee crisps, Mike?
I do.
Coconut toffee crisps came in and were a thing, and Mike adored them. So I remember we went out to Costco and bought like 3 boxes of them, like 60 in a box. But once they'd gone, and he was peeved. So that's the kind of thing that we do here. Meal planning wouldn't really work, would it? 3 times 60 boxes, that's what we need. Right, okay. We're going to head off. So like I say, think of any questions, put them in the comments. In fact, put comments anyway. YouTube likes comments and I like comments. Put them in the comments or email me. You will find that, or a contact form on my website. However, just ping me, let me know, reply to the mails, whatever, with anything that you would like covered. But for the moment, I am going to say good night from me.
And good night from me.
And we'll both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.